All right. And I will read you the introduction, which some of you may have already read because Alexa sent it out. Some of you may not have. Where is it? Here it is. So, born in Montreal, Adrian earned her BFA in Toronto and her MFA in Vancouver. She now lives and works in Appleton, Ontario. Her paintings have been exhibited in solo and juried shows in Canada and the US and featured in international publications. She was twice chosen as a finalist in the Kingston Prize for Contemporary Canadian Portraiture. In 2009, she was artist in residence for the Bermuda Masterworks Museum, culminating in a exhibition there. Adrian has had numerous federal and municipal commissions to create temporary public art installations. Her ongoing collaborative fiber art installation, Network, was one of the 10 finalists for the 2021 Berlin Social Arts Award. It was installed in 2024 at the Mississippi Valley Textile Museum in Elmont. I don't know whether anybody who's here now actually saw it last summer. Was it over the summer, I think? I happened to miss it. And this winter has been at the Museum of Design in Atlanta, Georgia. And maybe you can tell us something about how that went, Adrian. Adrian's art is informed by lived experience and on-site explorations and investigations in wilderness. She is deeply influenced by Indigenous philosophies. Working with natural materials and manufactured mediums, she creates visual commentaries on the wonders of the natural world that promote appreciation. Her work initiates reflection on human-nature connectedness and conveys messages of optimism. Adrian has shared her knowledge through teaching and lectures and donated her art to various nonprofit organizations. Her work is also in public and private collections in Canada, the US, and abroad. Right.
I don't have to give a talk now.
Yeah. That's it. Now, I think what we were going to do was have you share the screen and show some slides and stuff. But if you want to say anything first, I will set it up so you can share at any point.
Okay, I'll attempt to share it. And I just want to say thanks to everyone for coming this evening to hear me. And I'm going to try and condense 45 years of an art career into 20 minutes. So bear with me. I'm going to go through everything pretty quickly. I will share this. I will try to share the screen now.
Yeah. Is it okay? Is it working?
Is that okay?
Yes. Something is happening. Yes.
Something's happening. That's good. I'm just waiting to see. Can everybody,
yes.
Can everybody see that?
Yep.
Okay. Well, I'll start my talk then.
Good.
So I did, as Carrie already mentioned, I attended art college in Toronto in the late 70s. And then I worked as a graphic artist at Harbourfront Corporation. These are some of the flyers I did. I did flyers and I did newspaper and brochures. And this was truly cut and paste. There were no computers involved. I did all the illustrations, pasted the lettering, did the headlines. So it was really fun. But I wanted to try to make it as a real artist. So I quit my job and I moved out of the city to a remote cabin in Quebec, much to my parents' chagrin, because they thought I was settled for life. And I started painting. I wasn't sure what I wanted to paint, so I just painted whatever was at hand. And I was just really experimenting with trying to get a career going. Eventually, I relocated to Eastern Ontario. And over the next decade, I'm pretty sure I lived in 6 or 7 different locations, but I always found a place to work. And I always tried different mediums and explored different subjects. I did a series of, I would say, contemporary still lifes. These are large paintings. And it was kind of a juxtaposition of antique items from my past with the colorful stripes, which represented my city life. I had a solo exhibition of these paintings at what was then the Village Square Art Gallery in Carp. And
turn the TV off, okay?
Sorry? And this particular painting ended up on the back cover of Reader's Digest magazine, which my husband commented would be I'd be famous in doctor's offices for years.
Trying to listen to this.
Well, somebody should be on mute. Someone has.
Yeah, it is on.
There's no sound. Yeah, sorry. Can everybody mute themselves, please, except for our speaker? I'm trying to find the way to do that, but I'm not finding it.
Oh,
Just a second. Maybe if I open up the
I thought
gallery.
my audio is on.
There we go. I think it was Fred.
And Adrian, can you just repeat what you just said when everybody's muted? Because I kind of missed it.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, just this
Just about this picture.
about this
Thanks.
picture. This
Yeah.
picture ended up this was part of that series that I showed in CARP, and it was on the back cover of the Reader's Digest magazine, the Canadian edition. So, and my husband's joke was that I'd be famous in doctors' offices for years. They don't have magazines anymore, so that's not true. So at this point, I'm just squeaking by, making a living, doing freelance illustrations, showing and selling paintings in galleries, doing commissioned work, and teaching children art classes. But eventually we settled in Appleton, where my husband and I built a house with a large studio. So I finally had a studio where I could just close the door and leave the mess. And that's where I am right now, actually. And this allowed me to just continue working at home while raising our 3 children. Now, this village in Appleton that we're in is surrounded by farms, and I was raised on a farm in Quebec. So the inspiration for my next set of paintings was what I was surrounded with, the animals that I grew up with. This was a series of life-sized paintings, and it wasn't like bucolic paintings of fields with cows dotted in, but really close up and intimate images. I almost wanted you to be able to feel and smell the animals in a good way. So this series of animals was shown at McLaren Barnes Gallery in Oakville, Ontario. And they sell, animal paintings sell pretty well. Now, I did find it difficult sometimes to paint for long periods of time while you have 3 kids in the house. So I took up drawing in colored pencil for a while. Now, I still loved animals, so these were smaller pictures done. I could just pick it up. I could just pick it up and do it, and then put it down in a hurry when I heard a major screaming match going on in the house or something. So it wasn't like when you're painting and you have to have hours in a row. I did have a solo show of these pieces in the Lux Gallery in Carleton Place. And just wanted to point out that with all my previous work, I took all the photos myself, but I'm not a wildlife photographer. So in these are composite pictures. I would take one deer from one photograph and another deer from another photograph, and I'd make sure the shadows were the same, and then take some photographs myself for the background. So all the pictures in this series were composites like that. Where am I? Okay, so I also at this point was taking commissions to do portraits, children and adult portraits. This was by word of mouth. I wasn't really advertising this as something, but it was another way to make money. So at this point, I'd like to say that my career was really established, and I was doing really well. But it seems that artists have to just keep on working at being relevant. That you're always putting your name out there, you're networking, you're applying to galleries, maybe applying for grants if that's what you do. And of course, these days it's the all-important social media presence. And sometimes feels like making art is just half the work, and you almost need to be a marketing expert, which is, of course, like most artists, the part of my career that I enjoy the least. The next couple of decades were spent making art and giving lessons and workshops for adults and raising my kids. And of course, with raising kids, I met a lot of interesting women over the years, and they were the inspiration for a series I called Labors of Love, which was paintings on childbirth and motherhood. This particular painting, The Midwife, has had a lot of exposure. It's been featured in magazines in the UK and Australia, and it just came back from an exhibition in California. Yet it's still not sold, darn it. So I view the relationship of mother and child relationship as kind of sacred, like every mother is a Madonna, not religious, but sacred somehow. And so some of the paintings I ended up putting halos on the mother or the baby or both. And again, like my other animals, these are all pictures I took myself, but they're also composite pictures. So in this case, this comes from a series of different photographs. And I just remember that the hair was my daughter's hair. I wasn't happy with the hair that was on my model, so I got my daughter to pose for the hair. And the halos were added as an afterthought in this case. This particular painting sold to a collector down in the States. And part of this series of women paintings, I also painted featured traditional domestic rituals. This particular painting is of a friend of mine, a friend and neighbor. And this painting was featured in an art magazine, actually in Kingston, that came out this month, even though it's an older painting. So all these women paintings were exhibited in galleries in both Canada and the US. And I had a solo show at the Dale Smith Gallery in Ottawa. And at this point, as an interesting note, I'd like to point out that all of the galleries I've mentioned up until now have all since closed. So I'm wondering if I'm a jinx or what, or is it maybe just that online art marketing has forced a lot of private galleries to close down. So I started experimenting with locating some of my figures in natural surroundings. And it evolved into paintings of women connected to a part of nature, which was kind of a watershed point in my work because my art really started to become almost entirely focused on the environment and our interconnection with nature. Just for the record, this woman wasn't actually giving birth in a swamp. She was in a hot tub, and I did the swamp afterwards. So my models for these paintings were real women, mostly friends that I dragged out into the wilderness to pose for me. None of them had perfect bodies. They all had babies, and they weren't in sensual poses. So I guess in a way it was the female gaze rather than the male gaze, which we all understand. And interestingly, despite the fact that these paintings have been featured in several exhibitions, it soon became clear to me that figurative painting is really difficult to sell. Unless, of course, it's a lot of TNA, which you see a lot in the States these days. That sells well. I'm not going to spell that out, but these paintings were not like that. So I had to, although I love doing figurative work, I really do, I had to be pragmatic. So I started exploring other ways of making environmental commentaries. During this period, I was also, I think, as you mentioned, a finalist in the Kingston Prize for Canadian Portraiture. This is a commissioned portrait I did of somebody local here. Two of my paintings are in a book that was just actually published, and the book launch was in Toronto earlier this month, called the Kingston Prize. So I've got two portraits in that book. I was also during this time chosen as the artist in residence for the Bermuda Masterworks Museum. So I got to spend 3 months in Bermuda, exploring the island and creating a body of work for a solo exhibition there at the museum, which was pretty cool. And for me, it was an opportunity to spend 7 days a week, like 9 or 10 hours a day, just painting without any interruptions, because I still had a husband and one child left at home. I left them here at home and just went on my own. They did come for the exhibition at the end of the residency, though, and 16 of the 20 paintings at that show they sold on the opening night, so that was pretty awesome too. Doesn't happen very often. So in order to grow as an artist, personally, I feel it's important for me to be willing to experiment with maybe different materials, different techniques, just to basically challenge yourself and not stay in a rut. So for years I'd also been painting murals, commissioned murals. So now I started to apply for public art installation competitions. I was lucky to win a few competitions in Ottawa. This one was in the Byward Market on the York Street stairway. So I didn't paint it on the stairs. It was a painting that they enlarged onto polyethylene and bonded to the stairs there. Applying for these installation jobs, you have to conform to prescribed theme, and it's a lot of research and time and collaboration with the hiring team. This was a job that I got. I had to do 5 interactive pieces for on the National Arts Center patio and the stairs down to the canal. So it was a big job. They had set the theme, and they all had to be interactive, kind of like photo ops, really. So this was fun, but I wanted to try building actual installations 3D. So this requires a lot of research into construction methods and pricing materials. And these things are going to be exposed to elements and endure a lot of hands-on public interaction. So they need to be very, very durable. This was a cabin for Winterlude. I put a forest inside a cabin, and inside the forest, you can see animal tracks that lead up to a painted backdrop with the animals in the backdrop. It was a really steep learning curve for me, and one thing I had to think about was like, if I think it might happen, it probably will. So somebody will try to climb those trees, so they had to be really, really strong in case, I didn't want to kill anybody. So I enjoyed learning to work with different materials, and I ended up working with wood, metal, fabric, concrete, polyethylene, audio elements, and lighting elements too. I also learned to work outside in sub-zero weather with getting really, really cold. This was another Winterlude piece. The theme was Canadian sports, so I made figures that people could fit themselves into. So it was a challenge, but it was really fun. But besides these commissions, my own art was now completely focused on environmentalism, and I draw a lot of inspiration from my regular wilderness canoe trips plus local canoe trips. Now we were talking about Crotch Lake recently, and many of my paintings are done. I go there and I do field sketches and photography, and then I go back to my studio and complete the paintings there. I think there's got one here. I work in oil and acrylics on canvas, sometimes on wood panel, and sometimes I incorporate different materials into it. This one, it's one of the paintings you can see, like there's various animals and figures hidden in the water. But the other thing I did was to try to keep it kind of fun is that I threw in some rubber ducks in both these paintings. It's sort of like, you want to see wildlife, but there's a lot of plastic garbage floating in the water. So this is like plastic ducks. That was the sort of joke there. Where am I here? Oh yeah, some of my work becomes a little bit abstracted at this point, but it's still completely inspired by the wilderness. In 2019, I had a solo show of some of these paintings at the Ottawa Art Gallery. This was called Watershed. This one is a 5-foot by 7-foot piece on wood, and it incorporates fabric and I can't remember, all plaster, all kinds of other things. I've actually since repainted this and added more figures, but so it's sort of ongoing. So at this time, I felt like my career needed another shakeup. Things were kind of getting, I don't know, I was on a bit of a rut. So I decided to go back to school to see if I could find new ways of expressing our connection to nature. So I entered Emily Carr University master's program, and it was low residency, so I could do it online and in person in Vancouver, which allowed me to continue working at home and teaching part-time. So I started doing very, very different things. And with my master's degree, I was working with natural materials in the woods. Gradually, trees became the focus of my work. This was emerald ash borer tunnels from all the dying ash trees. And I looked at them as kind of hieroglyphs. So I made printing plates and then printed them onto paper and fabric as if it was the trees were trying to tell us something. I did a lot of work on site in the woods, and no one was going to see it. I just took pictures of it. It was sort of ephemeral, if you want to say. So I did a lot of this field work, which I still do it because it's just really an excuse to play outside as far as I'm concerned. But it does encourage you to experiment with no definitive outcome in mind, which is really refreshing when, as opposed to painting for a reason. They really encouraged us to think in new ways, and they forced us, well, they encouraged us to experiment and to question every aspect of our art. And what I found very helpful was that we also learned to express our artistic motivations in writing. And this is not the kind of writing they're talking about, but this was another experiment I did where I thought I could get the trees to speak or write. So I attached charcoal to the white pines and let the wind do the drawings. So these were a series of wind drawings I did. I felt like it was an important objective was for my art to really connect with people, or people to connect with my art, and to encourage reflection on human nature connectedness, because this can lead to more environmental action, I guess. So I read a lot of scientific papers on trees, and I became really fascinated with the underground network of roots and mycorrhizal fungi that enables trees to communicate and cooperate. And this was the genesis for my master's thesis. I wanted to instigate a participatory art installation that mirrored the interaction between trees and represented connectivity and cooperation. So I put out a call for participants to create long fiber-based strands for an installation project that I called Network. This is my master's thesis, and I had no idea if there'd be any interest. It was a real risk, but the response was really overwhelming. The strands just started pouring in by mail and were delivered by hand. And the strands have been like woven, knitted, crocheted, braided, and sewn. And the materials, everything from synthetic yarn or hand spun and dyed wool to fabric strips, dried reeds, cotton, string, plastic, burlap, beads, shells, wire, just everything you can imagine. So I graduated with my master's degree in 2020, but this project Network is ongoing. And up to now, as the pieces are still coming in, I've received 320 strands, and they've been.
That I was in part of. That was the, but she's recording it. It's it works. That's
okay. I'll continue there. They've these pieces have come from across Canada and the States and from 11 different countries. And the participants include artists, artisans, crafters, families, weaving guilds, seniors, youth, and Indigenous groups. I really have to say that I was overwhelmed and fairly humbled by all of the time and the thoughtfulness and skill that was put into these works. I really appreciated that. So as we talked about, Network has been installed in different forms in various locations. During the pandemic, I was able to experiment at the Textile Museum in Elmont, but it wasn't open to the public. I did an installation at the Festival of Trees in Mississauga in 2021. I called this the Mother Tree, which is the largest, oldest tree in the woods that sends its roots out to connect to other trees to support them. Now in 2021, as we talked about, Network was shortlisted out of 700 international works for the Berlin Social Arts Award. And in 2022, this forest installation happened on Indigenous-owned land in Pontiac, Quebec. The Thunderbird Sisters Collective, who are based in Ottawa, had done a beautiful strand for it, and they asked me to install it in this woods as a symbol of reconciliation, which I found very moving. And some of you may have seen the exhibition at the Mississippi Mills Textile Museum last summer. That was really well received, I think. And of course, Network is currently down at the Museum of Design in Atlanta as part of the Threads of Change exhibition that opened earlier this month. Now, they just sent this picture down to me yesterday, so I can share it with you. I haven't been there yet because they installed it themselves, but I'm going down in April to give an artist's talk. Now, it seems like that's all I do right now is Network. It's not, I'm still painting, it's true, but I also continue to do other installations because they're fun to do and I like working with different materials. In 2022, I did these installations for the Festival of Trees in Toronto down again. And it was a series of kind of like magic lanterns, but showing shadows of different kinds of native trees of Ontario. And where am I here? I also continue to paint, of course, because I will never, that's what I love to do. This is a very large painting, and I don't think I can zoom in on it, but it has dozens and dozens of animals and human figures incorporated into the water that you can't really see. You'd have to look closely or I'd have to zoom in on it. It's a pretty big painting. And I recently retired from teaching. It's been hard because I really love my students, but I don't ever plan on retiring from making art. So I'll keep on working until I drop. And that's it. And thank you very much for coming and listening to me. And I will end the show and I guess
yeah.
I don't know how to stop share.
How to stop sharing. Yeah.
How's that?
There.
Okay.
Good. Yeah, everybody's computer is different. I know Anchor It popped in for a minute and she seems to have disappeared again. She has been in the hospital, but she made one of those strands. She's one of the Mira people, and she made one of those strands for Network, and probably was the person who invited you to speak to us. Yeah, Anyway, she's going to watch the recording for sure.
Oh, great.
Other person who's going to watch the recording who couldn't be here tonight is Susie Osler, who traded dates with you.
Oh, right.
She does a lot of outdoor stuff too. And
Yeah, she does. She did the field works, I think.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, very glad to see the people who are here tonight. And if you have questions, just, I guess you'll need to put your hand up either by turning your picture on and just having your hand up, or by using the little icon down below.
Little hand icon.
Yeah. Helen knows how to do the hand icon, but not everybody does. So, and I know there was one question that when I was talking with you, I asked you that I would love to explore a bit, and that is, what blocks you as an artist? What causes you to not feel inspired, to not feel like working?
Oh gosh, that's a tough question. I would probably say, as much as I love visiting cities and traveling, I don't find a lot of artistic inspiration when I'm surrounded by man-made things. And some people love to draw architecture. It's nice to look at, but I find when I'm traveling in cities, I don't really feel inspired to even sketch or paint or anything like that. So I think on the other hand, what does unblock me is being in the wilderness. That's the most inspiring thing to me. And I do love painting animals and people, but I just don't do a lot of that anymore. For fun, I do it, but
Yeah. So that was my big question.
Dorothy was
Roxanne, I think you've got your hand up, and after that, Dorothy. But
Yes, I couldn't find the icon on the bottom.
that's okay.
So I did the old-fashioned way.
And Helen will get to you too.
I just wanted to thank Adrian for the invitation to participate in her master's. I did send along some crochet and braided cords, and it was wonderful to see the development. You know, she kept us informed as to, the various steps along the way. And unfortunately, I haven't been able to see the installation in person, but it's nice to be part and parcel of the fiber community in this way. Thank you.
Thank you, Roxanne. I just say, every time I go through it for another exhibition, I get a little bit choked up, actually, to be honest, because I'm just so overwhelmed by what the work people have done and the beautiful, creative, the love they've put into them, really. And so I feel like it's almost an obligation to keep it going. I can't just pack it away and forget about it. I feel like it's not just my work. Obviously, it's everybody's work, and I need to keep it in the public. So you'll be getting a newsletter soon about this latest exhibition, now that I've got pictures.
It's nice that you have taken what most people would call crafts and brought it to the art form and exhibited as art, because
was considered kind of women's work too, in a way,
Yes,
and kind of
yes.
disregarded as again, it's a labor of love. But yeah, it is an art form.
And I like to use the buzzword fiber engineering. Because, crafting can be, a whole range of stuff, but you had to work out how to hang them, how to do this, and how, it's mind-boggling to consider all the aspects. And that's just not crafts. That's more engineering.
That is engineering.
It
is a bit mind-boggling when you walk into a gallery and go, oh my God, where am I going to start?
Yes. Anyway, thank you for your work. It's wonderful to meet you in person, quotation marks.
I think Dorothy had a question.
I do. Having come from Quebec myself, I was curious, which part of Quebec did you come from?
I was born in Pointe Claire, and then we moved to a farm in the Eastern Townships.
Ah, my favorite place.
And
I also lived in Knowlton.
Oh, okay. Well, I loved it there. My relatives all are there, and my daughter lives in Montreal now, so I get to go back all the time, which is great.
Oh, that's so exciting. I realize I spent about 30 years in Lanark Highlands, and I really wish I had met you. That you're fascinating in the way you've been able to do your art, and it touches my heart, because I really think I feel the same way about any art. It's fine in the city, but I don't find it here quite as easily. I'm
Mhm.
living in the city now. And I made a point of trying to find it. And I do find it by the river. I find it by the canal. I find it in the air and in the hillsides around, but I have to look for it.
That's good though, because
And you don't look for it. You don't have to look for it out there.
I don't have to. I live on the river, and right now, when I look out the window, I see swans going by. Like,
I know, it's wonderful.
it's amazing.
So your work is beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And someone else had a question, I think.
Helen has her hand up with the little icon.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, sorry, Helen. Oh, there it is. I see the little hand now.
And you look at at least on my screen, the React button, and you click on the React button, which is a heart, and that gives you all kinds of options. But anyway, thank you, Adrian. Oh, what a variety of things you've done. It's so exciting. I had a couple of questions, but the one most relevant right now is about the installation, which I'm so sorry I missed in Almont. But I wondered about, you have it in Atlanta now, and you did not go down to install it. So what kind of instructions did you give?
That's a good question. First of all, I didn't apply to Atlanta. They contacted me. I don't know how they heard about it. They asked if I could send it down. And they said they were going to pay me to go down there, and they still are. But then, much to my surprise, when she said, "Oh no, we don't want you down there to set it up. We're a museum." There are, I think, 4 other artists in that show. There's the Coral Reef Crochet Project, which was a really famous project, and some other ones. And it took me about 5 minutes to sort of get over the shock of not setting it up myself. It's like, what? It's mine. And then I thought, well, it's going to be really interesting to see their interpretation of it. So I gave them all the parameters. I explained what it was to represent, and I showed pictures of how it had been installed in other places. But I had to trust them. Like the curators and all the professional installers have been doing museum installations there for years. And I thought, you know what? They know what it's about. I'm going to let them do it, and I'll go down and see what it looks like. But it's kind of exciting to see someone else's interpretation of it. I think it's good for me to loosen up my control of it a little bit, because a little bit of a control freak. So I think it's been a good thing all around, and it's exciting for me to go down and see it.
And I had one more question, if I may. It was when we saw your painting of the tablecloth and the coffee cup, the doctor's office picture.
Reader's Digest.
Reader's Digest. I mean, that's the kind of art I could never do. How did you get all those lines straight?
my God.
How did you know where they were all going to go?
I have a whole series of that. I mean, those are really large paintings, and that I only showed you 2 of them. Some of them included the ceiling, like an old kitchen, so the ceiling boards and the boards there. And I remember at one point laying my painting on the floor with 10 feet of newspaper and drawing vanishing points and perspective lines to get it all right. It's like, I think I did that. Yeah, I mean, I do teach perspective, but this was early days for me, and I just wanted to get it right. I can sort of do it by eye now, but at that point I had to get it. I was still a graphic designer at heart by then, so I had to it's a lot of work to get it right. And when it's not right, so you have to keep working until you get it right.
Excellent. No, I know I'm a good friend of one of your students, Jeanette, who is
Oh yeah,
quite
Jeanette.
heartbroken that you stopped teaching, but I think it's probably going to be good for them to, find other inputs.
Mhm. And Neil Carlton was also
Neil's right here. Yeah.
Neil took lessons too.
Oh, great. Such great people. I probably know quite a few of those people from my past. Yeah.
One of the more creative students I've ever had. Don't tell anybody else that. No, I really love Neil's work. Incredibly. Oh, someone's got their hand up. I don't see it. Fred? I'm not sure if you're waving or you have your hand up.
Yeah.
No, I had my hand up. Sorry for making extra noise at the beginning there. I'm guilty of that. I didn't find the mute button. But anyway, I love all your artwork, Adrian. It's really, really nice stuff. I love your big things and how you handle water and things like that. I think it's great. One of the things I was wondering is, do you do any presentations? I belong to an art club, and we have a meeting every month, and we invite other artists to come and do a 1-hour presentation. I was wondering, do you do anything like that?
I've done a lot of presentations. It just depends on where it is and when it is, pretty much. But I'm
Yeah.
open to that, sure.
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll pass her information off to our person that does that sort of thing. It's the Rideau Lakes Artists Association.
Okay, I know
We're
them. Yeah.
located in Westport, Ontario, and we
yeah.
meet at the North Crosby Hall.
I know Westport well. Okay.
Yeah.
You've got swans down there too.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
we do the new art show that's on the fourth weekend in August. If you do have an opportunity to do drop in, we'd love to see you.
Like we go through Westport a lot on our way to Frontenac Park. So
Oh, okay, great. That's
so I
good.
know it pretty well. But sure, no, you can pass my name on. If I'm around, I can do it.
Okay, thank you very much.
And anybody else, if you want, if you feel like, if you're in the area, you feel like dropping in, visit to see the studio, just contact me, because if I'm around, you can come. Now that I'm not teaching anymore, I have much more time to paint, and I have more free time. So if you're in the area and you feel like dropping in and having a studio visit, just contact me ahead of time and let me know. And I'll say yes if I'm around.
Fred was one of our other speakers. He does beautiful art himself.
Oh, yes, I read the bio. I haven't seen that yet. I've got all those series of ones still. I've only listened to one or two of them so far. So
on that one, I remembered to turn the record button on at the beginning. So
great.
Do we have another question? Come on, guys, put your thinking caps on.
That's okay.
Oh, that's all right. They're good at questions. They really are. I know some of these people. They're quite Neil. Yes.
Uh-oh. Now I'm in trouble. The master of tricky.
It's just that I wondered, where do you buy those magic pencil crayons that enable you to do those animals? And I'm joking, of course. It's just spectacular. And I've never thought of pencil crayons in that way. And just looking again tonight at what you showed us, it was just a big wow. And I just wanted to reach over here and get one. I'm in the wrong chair.
Now, Neil, we have to say colored pencils, not pencil crayons. Otherwise, it sounds too no, it's just Prismacolor. It's really good. But actually, I have big box with hundreds of colors, and I gave it to my daughter, who is also an artist. Despite my pleas for her not to be an artist, she still is. She sees me struggle all my life. I mean, it seems, you give a talk like this and it looks like, oh, got a, great successful career, but really, no. Am I making money? A lot of money? No. It's a really hard way to make a living. Squeaking by. But, I guess it's the satisfaction of making art. I wouldn't want to do anything else. So I'm lucky that way. Sorry, Rena, you had.
Oh, no, that's all right. I was just waiting. Back to the very first thing you did, one of the very first things you did, your Harborfront poster. Back before you had your real career, whatever you called it.
Real artist.
I recognized that.
One of the posts. You recognize one of the posters?
Posters, yeah.
Oh my God! I did so many posters.
Yeah, my background is typesetting and formatting and paste up and all that stuff you did before you had your career. That was my career.
It was really fun. I actually enjoyed I did the illustration too, but I enjoyed the cutting and the literally cutting and pasting and Letraset and everything. It was fun.
Yeah, that's compared to today with desktop publishing, it's really static. You just sit in one place. But back in those days, you were running all over the place.
Yeah,
and
it was very much hands-on, which, all of us artists prefer hands-on things. So that's true.
So the very first thing you did was something I recognized from back then.
People nowadays don't understand cut and paste. Young kids don't understand it. It's like really cutting and pasting, literally.
Letraset. Did you use Letraset for the letters?
Oh yes, I actually had tons of Letraset left over, and I just gave it all to my daughter, who loves fooling around with it. So,
oh yeah,
antique Letraset.
Margaret has a question.
Oh,
you have to unmute yourself.
Click on the little, Margaret, we can't hear you. You click on the little icon at the top of your box there.
Figuring it out.
It may be down at the bottom.
Oh, there you go.
Looking where it was at my picture up top.
Okay.
and I have shaky hands, so
Ah,
that's how I work for a
totally
living.
understandable.
My question was just kind of a practical question about you. You did your master's fairly recently at Emily Carr.
Mhm.
Um,
I
and
was a mature student, very mature.
yeah,
The most mature student there.
yeah. So my daughter did her BFA at Emily Carr back in 2005 or six, or between 2006 and 10, when it was on Granville Island. So
Mhm.
I was just curious about how much of your master's was virtual and how much time you actually spent there in Vancouver, and how you found the university itself when you went there.
Well, it's not on Granville Island anymore. They've moved. It's a big modern building. And it was really neat because as master's students, we had the whole upstairs and we all had our own offices. So I felt really special. But the it was two semesters out of three every year were virtual and one semester in person, which was great for me because I was still teaching and I was still painting. I had my show at the Ottawa Art Gallery during that time, so I was really busy. So I was able to, if I had to have been in Vancouver the whole time, that would have been very difficult. I also had really good friends and my husband's family in Vancouver, so I got to stay for free during every semester, which was great. So
Yeah.
that was definitely a factor in choosing that school. Otherwise, I couldn't.
Yeah, I was curious because my daughter still does art, but she can only do it on Sundays now because she works full time in high tech during the week.
So
But she's still, I mean, she can't survive unless she does art. So she's still she still works on her art. And so I just thought, oh, a master's at Emily Carr might be in her future.
Many of my fellow, with a very small cohort of 10 people, and many of them were doing it so that they could become art professors, like teach at a college.
Mhm.
So and that's not in my future because I want to keep painting, but that's, I think, what it leads to really. I don't know. I was down at the book launch in Toronto, the Ottawa, at the art gallery in Toronto. What's it called? The Ottawa Art? I don't know. Ontario Art Gallery.
I know what you mean, the AGO.
Yeah, that's right. And and I met all these other portrait artists in that book, and so many of them I spoke to are incredible portrait artists, and many of them have jobs like on the side to make a living. It's tough in Canada. It's definitely easier in the States, but we don't want to talk about that right now. So, but I've done a lot. I've sold a lot more paintings, I would say, in the States than I have in Canada, or at
Yeah.
least I have. So it's just that it's more of a, I don't know why it's like that in Canada. People, I think, here rely a lot on grants
Mhm.
to be funded. So that's another way of making it. If you have a master's degree, it's easier to get grants. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I only did it because I'd always wanted to do it and I never had time because I had too many kids. But so finally I had time to do it. But I don't regret going back. It was really, really fun and I learned a lot, and I think it's really good for whatever area you're taking. It's just really a good thing to shake yourself up a bit, learn new things.
Well, my daughter started off teaching as soon as she graduated. She wrote up some course outlines and she got some saddlebags for her bicycle. And she went around to the different community centers in Vancouver and she taught life drawing to adults and or how to do group of seven type paintings. Or another one was for little kids. It was art to music with Susan, sort of, where she would play music and let the kids do art to the music.
Well,
She's very big on art to music as well.
well, I've often told people, because I've done so many different things, different aspects of art, from murals to installations to teaching to commissions to portraits. And my answer to people is usually I'll do anything for money. That's sort of my joke. No, I mean, there's just so many aspects of art, and I'm happy to try it all if it interests me. Or I just if I could have just kept painting, it would be great. But I find it really, really interesting to be trying all different kinds of different aspects of art. It keeps me more energetic, keeps me young, sort of ish.
That's what I enjoyed so much about your talk tonight, Adrian, was the variety of art that you've done. All the to see all the different things, the portrait, the all the different things you've approached. It was really exciting to see.
Well, thanks. I couldn't. That's just sort of scratching the surface, but it's 45 years, so I've done a lot. But just sort of showing you an example of stuff I've. What is it? My dad used to say, "A jack of all trades, master of none." But I try to master most of them. So I don't want to keep you guys any too long. I don't know.
Other raised hands. Wait a minute. Who else has got a raised hand here?
Oh, Helen and Helen? That's
Yeah.
a raised hand? Yeah.
Or Barry. Helen and Barry are together. So it's
it's Helen. Okay.
Helen asks a lot of questions. She's kind of like me. Yeah.
Margaret, you could lower your hand.
Well, yeah, Margaret's hand's still up to over here.
Anyway, yeah, I'm just thinking of, I really loved, I just did a painting of a Georgian Bay Jeanette's cottage island with reflections and all these lovely things, and worked out really, really well. But then I see your reflections and they have meaning. They have more things going on than just, now, how do you plan those things out? How do you put those figures in? Are you looking at a real reflection and then you modify it?
Yeah, it's funny. I've got a minute. I'll tell you a story, a background story on that. When I was in Bermuda, I did a painting of a banyan tree. And those are the ones that they send down roots that turn into new trunks, so they become multi-trunk. They're incredible trees. And this is before I had done anything abstracted or anything. I did an underpainting. I did a sketch and I did an underpainting of this tree. And the more I painted, the more I saw things in the tree. I started seeing figures and like contorted and figures in anguish. So I started painting them into the painting. I didn't show you I did only show you 2 of that series, but and the more I looked at it, the more these figures just sort of came out. And so I painted them in and I was like, this is really weird because I'm not like a, airy fairy kind of person like that. And I left it at the underpainting. I didn't even want to finish it. I felt kind of creeped out about it. And somebody bought it right off the easel, even before the show it was sold. But I asked somebody about this. It was on the grounds of the museum. And I said, well, what's the history of this tree? It's really old. And they said, well, yeah, it was here when this was a plantation full of slaves. And I was like, oh, because it just really, I felt like the tree was speaking to me. So when I do water, I start off by sketching and photographing reflections. And as I paint it, the figures just appear. And I was like, things I didn't see before. I see animals that have disappeared in lakes I've been in, or animals that are making comebacks. I see people that are sometimes contorted, and I see mothers with their wombs showing with babies in them. All these things just sort of appear in the reflections, and I don't plan it at all. And they just happen as I'm painting. And I know that sounds really airy-fairy, and I'm kind of a realist painter, but I'm just going with my instinct now. And that's just what happens. So
I guess
I
that's
don't know where it comes from.
you're evolving, as you were saying, that you've been evolving in the way you do things. So
I guess, yeah. I'm learning to listen to my instinct, I guess.
It must be a little bit scary at times to think.
The tree was really weird to skip to this, but yeah, I'm looking for it now. I'm wanting to get those messages, whatever they are, and that's why I spent a lot of my master's degree working with trees. I'm hoping to hear a language of the trees to speak to me, but then I realized probably the trees are speaking to each other. They're not actually speaking to me, but I just try to listen and observe and listen, and hopefully something will come through.
Well, I'm going to try to listen and look too, because I can see things in rocks. I've done a lot of rocks lately, it seems, and then, but sometimes if it looks too much like a face, I might almost change it at this point, because it's too obviously a face. I mean, it disappears and it's a face, but to actually work it in would make a whole different piece of art. So I'm going to listen for that. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for the question. Kind of got me on a whole different train of thought there. I should show you that picture of the tree, but well, I won't do it right now. I could. So has everybody had supper here so far?
Yeah, you.
No, and I skied all afternoons. I'm hungry. Oh, Dorothy has a
I have
question.
one
Dorothy.
question. Do you
Yeah.
have a website that we could look at more of your art?
I do have a website. Yeah,
Oh,
it's
fun.
Awesome website, Dorothy. And let me just see if I can.
it's Adrian Baker Art.
Okay, I will look. Thank you.
It'll come up. There's one other Adrian Baker who calls himself an artist, but he's a musician in England. So we kind of vie for the top spot on the
Oh,
page.
good.
Just see
I
if
said, damn it, you're not an artist, you're a musician. But he says,
Here we go. Just take a look at it quickly for a second. There's net.
oh, we don't see it.
Oh, you're not seeing?
Oh, right.
Can
Yeah,
you
you can see the
now?
paint. You can see paintings, installations, all
Right.
sorts of other stuff.
Hmm.
That's just the Network Forest one, yeah.
Do you know Ankrit Dean?
I do.
Oh,
Yes.
you must have a lot in common with Ankrit.
I did, and she did something. She did a piece for the Network installation as well.
Yes, and earlier she did bridges over cities and
Oh,
did it all out
I've
of
seen that.
basketry and amazing things. Yeah.
I don't know if you go to paintings, you could go to the Masterworks,
Oh, I can
and
do
then you can show you that tree I was telling you about. But
Oh, really?
that. Let's go to
it's
that.
not. You can see it on my website if you go on the website.
Let me just see now. Share this. We'll get back to it. Paintings,
Paintings,
and then
uh,
we get back to.
you have to go back to paintings. Click on paintings again. And
Okay.
if you scroll down, there's that you can click on that tree right there, called Island. That's that. There should be that tree down below that you could click on. I don't know how good the pictures are. I didn't get no. Next, keep on going. There's another, not that one. There's another tree.
There's-
There. Oh,
Is
that
the-
one there.
Oh, there's a figure. There's figures in this tree.
There's all. That's the one that so haunted me when I realized I was painting a tree, but it turned into painting people. I didn't really
Right.
intend on
I see.
painting
Oh,
people.
yeah, I see them dancing, some of them.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So that was the one that I never really finished it because it kind of scared me a little bit.
I can appreciate that. This is really fascinating. I talked to a psychic just yesterday, and it's remarkable the things that come out of
Yeah.
the world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Was there
Really
another?
neat.
Anyway,
Beautiful.
some of the scenes were just that was a big, huge bonfire I went to. Guy Fawkes night.
Oh, really? Oh,
These photographs, I don't have any good photographs of this particular show because I didn't have a good camera with me, so unfortunately they don't show well. But anyway.
So I encourage everybody to go and explore her website and Fred Fowler's too, which is quite wonderful.
Mhm.
And
I was on Fred's already. I saw your website, Fred.
there you go. And to come back next week for Frank Van Oort. I was just talking to him today, and he couldn't manage to get Zoom going. We were doing a practice Zoom. So I think I'm going to have to go out to his place, which will be fun. But use my computer for the Zoom from his place, like I did with Tim Wheeler in the very first talk of the series. And so next week we'll have Frank, who does awesome stuff too. This has been such a privilege. Adrian, you did welcome me to your studio, and I've been there, and it was wonderful. And Fred, someday I'm going to hope to get to yours. And I have just been really enjoying all of this series and the artists so much. So it's been a privilege. So I think I just wanted to say thank you to you. Anchoret was going to do this part, and she just couldn't get here. She was actually in the hospital today.
is she all right? What's happened?
She has a virus, a respiratory virus, and they wanted to keep her because at her age, she's in her 90s. They have to be so careful. And but I saw her trying to come in at one point, and she usually would just call me. I have my phone here. She knows my number. And I think it's just too much for her. She it's really challenging in the hospital, especially.
It's very difficult to put it together.
So
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
she did send her regards and definitely wanted to be here tonight. So it's a shame, but I want to thank you too. We've really enjoyed your talk, Adrian, and I think there's been some inspiration here. That there's going to be some people looking at things a little differently and maybe doing some art of their own, which is quite wonderful. All right. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much for everybody. Nice to see everybody.
Thank you.
Okay.